Rabbi Sai Azoi. The Rishonim say that Taanis Esther was instituted on the 13th of Adar because that was the day that Klal Yisrael went to war with their enemies. And when Jews fight, there's fasting and davening. But it's got nothing to do with the fast which Esther called for on the day that she went in to see Achashverosh at the risk of her life. That was in Nisan. It wasn't even in Adar. So why is this day called Taanis Esther? What's it got to do with her? My hi. And another question. At the end of the Purim story, Mordechai carried on with his role in the Sanhedrin. But what happened to Esther? The first and only ever chief rabbi of New York was called Rav Yaakov Yosef. He was born seemingly in 1841 in Lita. He went to study under the Netziv in Volozhin, and the Netziv was so impressed by his excellence and his sharpness, he nicknamed him Rabbi Yankele Charif. He then went on to Kovna, where he studied and was very close to Rabbi Yisrael Salanta, and eventually in 1883 he took on an extremely prestigious role of being the Maggid of Vilna and the de facto posek there. For several decades, many of the main communities in New York, facing many problems including rampant assimilation, had been looking for a Rav to unite the mechazik Yiddishkeit in the city. At a certain stage they were in negotiations with the Malbim. It didn't work out, but eventually in 1887 they turned to Rav Yaakov Yosef, who was a towering, charismatic, dynamic Talmid Chacham, to take on the post. Having run into very heavy debts in Vilna, where he repeatedly took out loans to give to, with his big heart, anyone who came to his door asking for tzedakah, he was in need of a new post and agreed to take on this new post of the chief rabbi, or as it was known, Rav HaKollel of New York. America awaited his arrival with bated breath. This was a real Litter Yid, who they hoped would turn around the city and eventually the Yiddishkeit of the whole country. Over 100,000 people went to greet him when he arrived in New Jersey. And when he gave his first public drasha on Shabbos Nachmu in the Beis Medrash HaGadol on the Lower East Side of Manhattan, tens of thousands of people turned up to hear it. In fact, the police had to disperse the crowds. The Rav HaKollel had finally arrived. Immediately he turned his attention to chinuch, to yeshivas. He established a new Beis Din, and he worked to be mechazik Shmir Shabbos in the city. But when he tried to improve the dreadful kashrut situation in the city, well, things became very messy. He appointed mashgichim to work both in the butcher's shops and in the slaughterhouses, and he fired inadequate sheikhdim. When the butchers started to lose control, they were really not happy. They turned on him, and soon the reform press followed, and even fellow Rabbanim who were seemingly jealous of him, they started to mevazeh this tzaddik publicly. One day he was walking in the marketplace on the Lower East Side, and he saw a piece of chazir hanging up with his hechsher brazenly stuck on it by a local Jewish butcher. That was it. Broken, that day he went home and had a terrible stroke. Downtrodden, poor, broken and paralyzed. In 1897 he insisted on giving a Shabbos HaGadol drasha against his doctor's orders, and he was wheeled to the shul in a wheelchair. He started off the drasha, state in Rambam in Hilchos Tshuva, but then he couldn't remember what the Rambam said. 3 more times, state in Rambam, until eventually, in sobbing tears, he sat down. This man who'd once been the Maggid of Vilna could not even remember what it said in the Rambam. So broken he had become by his matzav. And the people watching, understanding what had happened, also sat there sobbing. Rav Par was once asked why Torah had flourished so much in America after the war. He answered that it's not shaykh that such a thing should happen without some real mysterious nefesh for Yiddishkeit. He said that mysterious nefesh came from Russians behind the Iron Curtain who risked their lives to keep basic mitzvahs. But perhaps we can suggest that the mysterious nefesh of the Goin, the Tzaddik, the Rav HaKollel, which was close to home in America, also played a role. The Torah place, Vilna, that he had left was destroyed in the war, but the barren place, America, that destroyed him, ended up becoming a Makom Torah. With this in mind, back to Esther, what happened to her? So while the rest of the Jews were besasoin and besimcha, she remained trapped in the palace, married to Achashverosh, a man that she herself compared to a dog and a lion. And she anyway couldn't go back to Mordechai. Uksha avadati, avadati. She literally gave up everything for the Jewish people. And like the Rav HaKollel, millennia later, there was no happy ending for her. But look at what her mysterious nefesh achieved. the salvation of her people. Why is this day named after her? So maybe we have a hint from the Sefer Kav HaYashar. He writes that through Esther's heroic efforts, she forged new avenues of Kirvas Elokim. She was Omedes Bechatzer Beis HaMelech. And the Zohar, Kiyadua, says that means Lifnei Melech Malchei Amlachim. So when we daven and we say the Slichas and the Tainis, we have, writes the Kav HaYashar, the ability to enter into those avenues and daven for our needs and the much needed Geula of Klal Yisrael. Esther's legacy of Mesiras Nefesh lives on. Wishing you all a productive Tainis and a Freidach Purim.